Well, hello there. Welcome to Shake Hands Podcast. This is your podcaster, Dan McGaina, and today is my special guest, the one and only, Mr. Steve Farrell. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing real good today. Thanks for having me come on.
Yeah, I appreciate you being my guest. You know, I'm just starting this thing out. It's my second one. I had my son do the first one, and I thought, well, next I want to get either a club owner or a coach or somebody like that, and so I really appreciate you being willing to come over here and or let me come to you and do this podcast. So we're only going to be here for about 30 minutes, just talking to Steve about anything and everything that has to do with wrestling. That's what this podcast is about. I want to get people that have a tie to wrestling, and then however that tie is, then whatever they want to talk about. So first thing I want to mention is Steve is the high school coach here at Waterloo West, the home of Dan Gable. Dan Gable wrestled here back in the good old days. Just tell me, how's that feel to know that now you being a wrestler, you're at the school where Dan Gable actually went, the man, the myth, the legend himself. Picture's right there behind you.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome because, there's no program in my mind that is this rich in history than Waterloo West. I believe they're tied right now with the most national champs in the United States, still with a team from Oklahoma. I don't know off the top of my head, but definitely had a lot of powerhouses through the days. We're kind of rebuilding process right now, but had a pretty good off season, so things are going well.
Yeah, he had an off season. I noticed that you also run Iron Sharpens Iron wrestling camps. You're the head owner of that one, and I've seen a lot of your wrestlers at camp. What does that camp do for those high school wrestlers?
I think it's definitely for mat time for our guys, technique. I really think that it's a technique camp within a team camp. Most of the time you go to a team camp, you have one large session of technique. If you're going to all the optional techniques, from 7:30 all the way to our individual team sessions to 9 o'clock, you're getting a ton of technique in 4 days. So I think that for our guys, a lot of the guys that we're getting right now at Waterloo West are kids that have came to junior high with you, that they started in 7th grade, that they do not have a lot of mat time, and in their career they're getting their matches in junior high. So right now we're kind of playing catch up with some of that mat time with some of the kids that may have started in the youth, that have started since kindergarten and still wrestling today. So for us, it's big from technique wise to getting matches in, and our camaraderie as a team coming together. I think that that has been big, coming together as a unit as well.
Yeah, you talk about they only started in junior high, and that's true. And people say Dan Gable started in junior high, but back then they didn't have kids starting in kindergarten like they do nowadays, in preschool. There's preschoolers out there training, and those kids starting in junior high, that I know that I've coached a lot of those kids. They're just doing the junior high season in the school session. They're not even getting a lot of those out of season or off school time. If it's a half-year program, which in Waterloo here it is, they separate wrestling the first half of the year and basketball. A lot of you out there understand that where you live, you may do wrestling and basketball at the same time. And I believe Denver does that, where they have it at the same time. Columbus used to do that. But here in Waterloo, they separate it. Wrestling season and basketball, so the kids can do both in junior high and decide what they want to do by the time they get to high school. I like that idea, but it does make the season shorter for those guys. And if they're not doing any of that off-season club work, it's very hard to get to that level you need to be at when you reach high school and you're wrestling kids that have wrestled since they've been in diapers, And so a lot of those kids don't get that club time, but I noticed that this year you offered an opportunity at the Waha Club, and you brought in, Johnny DeJulius, Pete DePaul. Who are some of the other names you brought into the club? And not only did you give it for your kids coming to West High, you offered it for kids around the area if anybody wanted to come. There was a lot of kids from neighboring towns coming in, helping each other. Iron sharpens iron, just like your club says. You were doing that, and having kids from all over were coming in and taking advantage of that. Who's some of the other club counselors you had?
We had Max Thompson, he's over there in Northern Iowa. We've had, I know his first name, his last name, he's kind of a crowd favorite at UNI. He's a 74-pounder, Taylor.
Taylor Lujan.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
He's came in.
Incredibly fun to watch.
We've had Joey Laser come in.
Joey, great with kids, and probably one of the best scramblers. Him and Lujan, I mean, Joey's much smaller than Lujan, but those two guys, they can scramble. I mean, just put them in a plastic bag and shake them up and just watch them roll. It's so much fun to watch them.
Yeah, Nelson Brands we've had as well.
From Iowa, wow.
Yeah, so, bringing in, I think that's one thing with me is, not only giving back to my own team, but giving back to the area, opening it up for kids, especially when, Waterloo, when we talked about a lot, majority of the kids that are coming in are kids that have started in junior high wrestling. Some of them, do not have the funds to go to, a big name club or something like that. So to be able to have something affordable or free option, that's huge when anytime, building a community for wrestling. I felt like that's a need in the area, so that was a big reason why I did that.
Yeah, that was huge. I know that I had not seen that stuff happening prior to you coming to West High, and I appreciate it. I bring my own son in here, and I encourage other people to do it too in there. If you're anywhere near Waterloo, when he offers those in the spring, you should definitely take advantage of those. I mean, you're getting some of the best technique. Guys are paying thousands of dollars for these kind of guys to come in, and you're bringing them to these kids and telling them, hey, it don't cost you nothing. Just show up and get better. And that's pretty cool. And you do a lot of that. Like with the Iron Sharps Irons, you give a lot of scholarships. I believe you gave, $30,000 in scholarships over the time of ISI?
Yeah, $30,000 in scholarship. It wasn't just, me knocking at the doors. We had Palacio. He had a GoFundMe. He used actually, his Facebook, his Twitter for good, he's always, kind of a prankster, but he used it for good for that, and, raised over $6,000 for that. Barbarian Apparel, Josh, here, he...
Wearing one of his shirts myself.
There we go. He was $10,000. David Taylor was, $5,000. We have Guy Seiko as well. So, we do have, some not as big... donations, but we do raffles for singlets that, like Jason Nolf and some of the other guys, Snyder, will, and we will have donations for that, help into the fund as well. So, I mean, it's definitely a total team effort there.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about a team, you're not talking about just your team. You've got, not only your team, you've got your wife has helped out, Lexi. Her brother, Anthony Childers, has been there helping out. And your mother and father, who I just love. I adore those guys. Your mom, she's there, and I love seeing those guys every day. Your dad works at concessions there and helps with the kids. They've been a big part in your wrestling. Give me a little information as to how they helped you develop into not only being a wrestler yourself, but now going on and being a coach and being somebody that gives back to the community, as well as, running probably the best and largest wrestling camps, at least in the Midwest, as far as I know.
Yeah, I started actually at the YMCA here in Waterloo. My dad took me. I'm a second generation wrestler. My dad wrestled at Charles City, Iowa. I graduated in 1965 from there. And, he knew wrestling that, he got into it when he was in 8th grade. He ended up being a state qualifier in 1965. He lost first round. Back then, if you lost first round, you were done. Actually, he got second at districts. The champion of the districts was Mashik, that was a longtime coach of Don Bosco. So my dad lost to him in 3-2 in a close match there, and he ended up still qualifying. But back then, there was only 8 that went to state, but if you were one and done, you were done. And then he blamed it all on my mom on that. So, but anyways, that was actually at McElroy Auditorium way back in the day, here in Waterloo. So I did that for a couple of years, where they would, at the YMCA, where you would, they would do kind of a camp style, where you come in for a couple of weeks, and then they would have like a round robin deal. So that was kind of my first introduction into wrestling. And then the Waha Club had definitely a big club where my brother went, myself went.
Was Dickie still involved with that back then?
Yes, he was there. Moses was one of the coaches as well. We I mean, the who's who was in there. The Ryder brothers from Don Bosco, the Clarks from Union.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it. I mean, everybody that placed for Cedar Falls came through the feeder system of the Waha Club. It was definitely, you know, a who's who. You know, I know my brother, he got second. I remember he'd always wrestled Jace Clark, that was a 3-time state champion. You know, so there was a lot of definitely, you know, powerhouse wrestlers and teams that came out of there. And, you know, that was another reason where I said, you know, we need to get, better kids in the room to wrestle our kids. Also, you know, it was very affordable, you know, compared to, you know, some clubs are very expensive, you know,
Yeah, it's nothing to pay $100 to $200 every month for 4 or 5 practices, you know, at some of these elite clubs. Absolutely. And $200 a month, I believe, to go to some of the elite ones up by Nyack, that they have a club up there. So yeah, it's definitely expensive, and you've done a lot to make that very affordable for the kids, especially in the community in Waterloo, where there's a lot of diversity and a lot of struggle with some of the people that in this town that are trying to raise it back up again. I know Mayor Hart's doing a lot in town trying to help people. So I mean, you being a part of helping raise Waterloo into a better place is a huge thing. And we talk about the kids back then. What's the difference between kids back then in the Waha Club and kids today? I mean, kids, you know, 20, 30 years ago, we always hear, oh, they ain't tough like we are today. What's the difference? Why you think people think that kids aren't as tough as they used to be?
You know, I think that there's a lot more distractions now, in my opinion, with technology. You know, I mean, everybody has a cell phone, and it's not only a cell phone. You know, it's a small computer. You know, and I think that you can see a lot of great opportunities on there, like different opportunities for, you know, for training and things like that. But there's also other opportunities for kids to get in trouble on there, to be able to, you know, talk to their buddies. You know, I think a lot of it also is it's harder to build leaders, because back in the day when you would gather up all the kids, sandlot, you know, football or whatever, go around the neighborhood and, you know, gather some kids up for football or whatever it may be, where you're building leaders that way, where they're kind of doing it on their own. You know, now, you know, there's a lot more, you know, things that are organized and things like that. I think that, you know, that factors in there as well. I think that, also, I was asking my dad, you know, in 1965, how many kids did you graduate with that came from divorced families? And he's like, maybe one, you know, back then. And, you know, that was kind of the heyday of Waterloo West and, you know, East as well. And, you know, Central was a powerhouse as well. That, you know, that is not only a Waterloo issue, I think it's across the country that you have that as well. That's, you know, tougher. On kids as well. And I think that, you know, deep down, I think, you know, kids want to be successful. Kids want to do that. I think that it makes your job more enjoyable, that you're able to, you know, have to, you know, build those positive bridges with the kids to be able to get them hooked some way, somehow. And I think that with some of our kids, with camp, when we brought 10 kids to camp, where, you know, they're bonded together, you know, where they are, you know, I'm watching them, that they're not just going and, you know, chilling after their match, they're going and cheering on their teammates, you know, that dual meet setting. And I think that's cool also. You know, now you're seeing more and more of these youth dual tournaments. You know, I'm running one, you know, I see them all over. I think those are a key component on keeping kids out, because, you know, when you're going to an individual tournament, you go to a barbecue, or you know, you lose, you know, it's individually there. I mean, even if you're going against a stud and you're not a stud yourself, and you don't give up a pin, or you don't give up a major, or, you know, bonus points there, you're saving those for your team. I mean, there is still, you're kind of being an unsung hero there for the team, you know. And I think that, you know, those are good things moving in the direction. But kind of to answer your question, I think that there's a lot more things going on at home than there were before.
We blame the kids a lot on that, and I think parents have to take partial blame in that as well. I think a lot of parents protect their kids too much. You know, they had it hard, they had it tough, but sometimes they forget that that's what made them who they are, is sometimes those tough challenges, and figuring out how to overcome those challenges and those defeats and those struggles. You know, you're playing out in a football field, you know, 20 years ago with your buddies throwing the ball around. If you got hurt, you wasn't picking up your cell phone and calling mom. You were getting on your bike, limping home, maybe somebody was helping you, or you might run to a neighbor's or a friend's house or somebody lived nearby, and you would ask for help. Or you would have to work it out between yourselves. Nobody's jumping in there telling you, hey, you guys, quit fighting. No, if you had a problem with somebody, you guys figured it out. It didn't always mean you had to go to blows, but sometimes it did. But either way, you guys figured out how to cope and how to adjust and how to adapt in situations that were tough. I mean, even if it was just going and having to go, I mean, kids nowadays have struggled talking to people. We used to get thirsty, we'd go on to a door, knock on the house, usually. Sometimes we just run at the garden hose on the side of the house and turn that bad boy on and get a drink till somebody came outside and said, hey, make sure you turn that off or get away from it. So I think some of it's on the parents. We overprotect the kids and we do too much to try to save them from that struggle that we may have had. And so I think some of it lies there. You mentioned about the tournaments, the dual tournaments. I absolutely think that is a great thing. The only problem I'm seeing with dual tournaments, which I love them, I coach a lot of the Iowa national teams and stuff, and I love doing those, and I do see a lot of benefit from them. The only problem I'm having is a lot of that is starting to become about a business. It's starting to become about money. I'm taking kids to these tournaments, and the fees to get in are raising. They're getting higher and higher, $800, $900, $1,200 to get a team into a tournament. Then you got to buy. Then everybody thinks they have to buy new gear, and everybody has to have matching outfits. Then you throw in another $200, $300 there. Then you add in the hotel rooms. I mean, you're getting up there, and some of these people can't afford that. So one thing that I know I've tried to do with the Iowa Hammers is say, hey, we use the same uniform we used the year before, so only new kids that are getting on team, you can use that uniform for 1 or 2 years instead of having to buy a new one every 3 months or every 2 months when you do a dual tournament. Now you're putting on a tournament here coming up in October, the Iron Elite Fall Nationals. Is that what it is?
Yep, October 19th and 20th. It's going to be here in Waterloo at the Five Sullivan Brothers Convention Center. And actually, we received a grant from the city of Waterloo to be able to, move that to Waterloo. Same with the Iron Elite Youth National Duels. That will be December 7th through the 8th, which is the same time as vacay duels. Which, when I look at things, I'm looking at things. Where do we need a need? Which. I got out of my comfort zone because my comfort zone was with camps, with Joel, with Anthony, with, Joel's family, with my family. We are being able to build that up, after 9 years, feeling pretty comfortable. Last year, we had it at the Nelson Fieldhouse over there on the campus of Northern Iowa. And I felt like, being from the Cedar Valley, being from Cedar Falls, I saw that, we lost, preseason nationals, that there was an opportunity there that not only losing preseason nationals is a loss to our area wrestlers, but a loss to our local Cedar Valley businesses, that we're able to still have something there. And, it's at a decent date where it's before, it's a good warm-up for preseason nationals. It's the week before preseason nationals. It's also, we're not competing this year. Last year we were competing with independents where they have the charity duels, the elite girls over there at Independence, that we didn't get as many draw from the girls division. But now we're the week after that. So we're the week after Super 32 and the Independence Girls Tournament there in Iowa. So we're kind of, sitting there alone, so to speak, that it's a date that nobody else is using. I think it's a great time to, tune up for those people that haven't got a tournament in yet. I think it's great for the Cedar Valley. I'm glad that Waterloo is, supporting us through that. And I'm definitely excited for the opportunity to have it at Waterloo.
Where can they get on to sign up for that and to get into that tournament, and where will it be at exactly?
Okay, so you can go on to Track Wrestling, search Iron Elite Fall Nationals. or you can go on to ironelitewrestling.com, and you can go on there and you can see, on our website, any of the questions that you have about fees. Right now online it's $30, which is very affordable for everybody. Also, there's discounts if you need to stay in the hotel. The Ramada's right there, connected with the Skywalk. They will have that's connected to the venue, and they will have discounts. I know you go to some tournaments, and that's when they have the rates up over $100. It's going to be below $100. For that hotel. So
can't beat that. You just leave your car parked in the parking garage, get out of bed, and I believe they have a restaurant downstairs. Will they be offering a buffet or anything like that possibly?
Yeah, they'll have the same type of buffet that they have there for Battle of Waterloo duels.
Okay.
They have a buffet there for breakfast and whatnot, and it's going to be the same venue there, the Five Sullivan Brothers, for the December duels, December 7th through the 8th. So, that's $500 per team when you add it up per kid. It's up being $25 per kid.
Totally great. And you'll get several matches. That's the big thing. You're not just getting 2 matches for $25.
Yeah, you're getting over. It depends on how many guys we get. Some years that they've gotten 7. The least is 5. So around from 5 to 7 matches that they will get.
Yeah, you can't beat that. That's a great thing. All right, so we've talked about your camps. We've talked about the tournaments you got coming up. Let's talk about the season you got coming up here at West High. Give me some information. What do you got for guys returning this year? Who do you expect to be maybe one of those guys that people might be underestimating that might be shining this year? And who do you have that we already know is a stud?
I already have a board up here in the office where I kind of have some guys penciled in, like where I thought, hey, some of them were. We have some of our goals up there.
See if I can get that over there real quick.
We have some of our, to be built West tough, we need to be able to control what we need to control each day. We need to have full effort. We need to have a positive attitude. We need to have our never quit toughness. And that's some of the things is I think that, some of our kids, get so focused on, the referee or focused on different things that is out of their control. Go in there and, control. You can control each day. Ashton, he was actually a kid that you had at Central. He will probably be right now our returner at 106, and, last year I think he was like 90 pounds. He won 16 JV matches. That was one thing that I came in and I talked to Dr. Pappas, our AD, made sure that we had a full JV schedule. That we had 15 dates for JV this year, which was great. I know years before they may have not had the numbers. I said, hey, we really do have I think we had maybe around 10 or 11 freshmen, and I knew sometimes we were going to use some of those freshmen to fill in some weights, but, when we were going to individual tournaments and it wasn't a dual tournament, we were sending them to a JV tournament to get better. And he had 16 wins for us. So he came to 3 camps this summer. So I definitely think that he'll do well for us at 106. Caden is about 113, 120. Kind of depends on if he's growing or not. Right now he'd be kind of a light 120 because I think he was about 122 around there. Low 120s, but it's kind of see where everything falls with the body fat test and whatnot. But he'll be at 113, 120. He had a great season. I think he was 36-6, but fell kind of short. Had 2 place winners. I really think he was one of the top 8 kids in his bracket. Just he had 2 place winners in there. I think he had a kid that got 4th and a kid that got 6th.
Yeah, one of them had dropped. The Cedar Falls kid had dropped down to 13 or whatever at the last week or two to qualify, didn't he?
Yeah, and he ended up losing to him in a wrestleback in overtime, and that was a kid that tech folded him the year before.
Yeah.
Caden, definitely, gave it his all in that match. Fell up short, but I think it really motivated him in the off season. Where we do an off season point system to get on our team posters that we've had now, and I think he was one of the top guys that came in and lifted, and you get points for that. Came into open rooms, freestyle camps. And he's really a lead by example type of guy. I think some people see him and they're like, with the long hair, because he is in a band, a lot of people think, oh, who is this kid? They think he's a punk, but he's a great kid. He's a champion on and off the mat.
Yeah, I plan on having him on the podcast. Actually, I spoke to his dad. Him and his dad both lead singers in bands. And I definitely have talked to those guys about having them on the podcast as well, and I plan to do that. Caden's great. I've been knowing Caden since he was a little kid. My son used to wrestle, so I've known him for quite a while, him and his family. Good people. So who do you got above Caden then?
Yeah, above Caden, at 120 or 113, it kind of depends. Trey Dolan, he came to a couple camps. I think he's another Central kid that you had there.
Yeah, him and Ashton used to wrestle each other all the time. They were good partners. I got 2 more kids coming up the next couple years. Hopefully they come here for you and do a good job.
He won 20 JV matches for us this year. He's a kid that kind of, he kind of holds
emotions
on his sleeve. He's that type of kid where, wrestling's definitely good for him to be able to, learn those life lessons there. And I think he'll fill in anywhere from 13 to, he wrestled 13 last year, so anywhere from 13 to 20, kind of depending where Caden goes. And we have Jackson at 126. He was 126 last year for us. He won 16 varsity matches. He's definitely a kid he's actually a 4-sport athlete. He qualified for state and the 4x4 for track. He's a kid, I think he went to Hoover. Definitely an athlete that I think that he can get better, each time out. So it will be good for him to see how he goes there. We got Cole at 132, Cole Knight.
Before we talk about Cole, let's go to station break so I can do sponsors, and we'll come back to you in the second half.
There we go.